The chase looks different when you are no longer running towards someone. That is the first thing I need you to understand before anything else in this reading lands. Because what is coming is not a simple reversal of positions, not the satisfying, symmetrical flip of a dynamic where the person who was once pursued becomes the pursuer. What is coming is something more complex than that and considerably more meaningful. They are going to chase you, and you are going to be somewhere else, fully, genuinely, not as a strategy, somewhere else, occupied with your own life, building things, becoming more yourself, in the specific, unself conscious way of someone who has done the work of redirecting their energy back toward themselves and has found, to their own slight surprise, that their own life is actually quite compelling when they give it their full attention. That is the chase they are going to be running against. Not a wall, not indifference, not a person who has hardened into something unreachable, a person who is simply elsewhere, fully. And the full elsewhere of you is going to be the most magnetic thing they have ever tried to close the distance toward. Something happened to them. Not a single dramatic moment of realization that arrived like a lightning bolt and reordered everything instantly. Something slower than that and more lasting, an accumulation, the specific incremental quality of understanding that builds when a person has enough time and enough distance from a situation to finally see it clearly without the distortions that proximity always creates. Without the self-protective narratives that make our choices feel more justified in the moment of making them than they look in hindsight. They have had the hindsight, and the hindsight is not kind to them. Let me describe what I am seeing. Because the image is specific and its detail carries meaning. A person sitting with something, not comfortably, the specific quality of someone who keeps coming back to a thought they would prefer not to have to keep coming back to, who picks it up, examines it, understands again why it is uncomfortable, sets it back down, and then finds it in their hands again a few hours later without having consciously reached for it. The thought is you, more specifically, the thought is what they did, what their choices produced in you, the specific shape of the damage viewed now without the convenient blur of being in the middle of something that felt different from the inside than it actually was. Viewed with the particular sober clarity of someone who no longer has a situation to justify the behavior and is left holding only the behavior, the weight of it is considerable and it is not going away. I want to speak to what the regret actually looks like, because regret is not a single clean emotion, and the kind I am reading carries specific layers worth understanding. The first layer is the obvious one, the emotional layer. They feel bad about what they did, about the specific ways they handled things, the choices they made, the ways they showed up or failed to show up, the things they said or left unsaid that produced pain in someone who did not deserve to be in pain because of them. That layer is real and it is present, and it produces a quality of discomfort in their daily life that they cannot fully escape. The second layer is more complicated. It is the cognitive layer, the specific, often relentless process of replaying what happened and identifying in hindsight all of the moments where a different choice was available, where they could have done something differently, where the thing that ultimately hurt you could have been avoided if they had been operating from a different place or with a different level of awareness or with more courage than they were capable of in that moment. This is the layer that keeps them awake. Not the feeling of guilt exactly. The specific torture of being able to see very clearly now all the forks in the road that led here and understanding exactly which turns they took wrong and what the right turns would have looked like, and knowing that the right turns were available and were not taken, that is not something that quiets easily. And then there is the third layer, the one underneath both of the others, the understanding of what they lost. This layer is the most recent, because loss, when it is real, takes time to fully register. The immediate experience of a person or a connection being no longer present in your life does not deliver the full reality of that absence at once. It delivers it incrementally. Through the accumulation of ordinary moments where the person used to be part of the texture of daily life and now is not, through the gradual, sometimes humiliating discovery that what you thought you could manage without is actually structuring more of your daily experience than you realized, this person has been discovering what you specifically contributed to the texture of their life. What is absent in a way that nothing else has been able to fill? What the version of their daily experience that contains you is like compared to the version that does not. The comparison is not in their favor. The comparison is not in their favor. I want to stay in this third layer for a moment because it is the most recent and therefore the most alive in their energy right now, and it deserves its full examination. The specific things they are discovering are not abstract. They are having conversations that feel slightly emptier than conversations with you felt, not dramatically, but in the way that certain conversations now produce a low-grade awareness of what is absent rather than what is present. An interaction that should feel satisfying, landing with a slight hollowness where something specific used to be. They are encountering things that remind them of you with a frequency that embarrasses them slightly. Objects, references, situations that carry your frequency in a way that seems disproportionate now that the context that created the frequency is no longer active. These reminders are not welcome. They arrive unbidden and produce a response that this person has been managing back into neutral with varying degrees of success. The management is getting harder because what the reminders are pointing at is not simply an absence. It is an absence that has a specific cause, and the cause has a name, their own choices. That is the particular quality of this kind of regret that makes it more corrosive than ordinary loss. Ordinary loss can be grieved and processed and eventually integrated. Loss you caused yourself carries an additional weight that ordinary loss does not. The weight of agency, of having been the author of something you now wish you had not authored. They are carrying that weight daily. I want to speak to something that is important and that I think you deserve to hear directly. They underestimated you, not your feelings or your worth or your general quality as a person, though those were also underestimated. Specifically, they underestimated what it would be like to live without you. They made calculations about the future that did not accurately account for how significant your presence actually was. They moved toward whatever they moved toward with a confidence about their ability to move on from you that was not based on an accurate understanding of what moving on from you would actually require. The confidence was wrong. And they know it now in the specific, visceral, completely undeniable way that you only know something when you are living inside the proof of it rather than theorizing about it from the outside. The proof is daily. Every day that you are not there is another day of proof. Let me speak to what the chase actually looks like, because I want to be specific about what you can expect and when. It begins quietly, not with, a dramatic gesture or a grand declaration or anything that announces itself as the beginning of a pursuit. It begins with the specific, tentative quality of someone who is not entirely sure they have the right to reach after what they did, and who is therefore reaching in ways that are deniable enough to retreat from if the reaching is not well received. A message that is friendly rather than explicit about what it is actually doing. A comment or a reaction to something in the periphery of your life that creates presence without making a demand. An attempt to reestablish contact through the gentlest available channel before risking anything more direct. These early reaches are not weakness. They are the specific carefulness of someone who is aware that they have done something that reduced their standing and who is trying to rebuild some ground before asking for anything that requires standing they may not currently have. Watch for them. Not because you need to monitor or track or calibrate your response based on their behavior, but because they are going to be there in the subtle texture of your awareness of this person, and recognizing them for what they are will help you engage with them from your actual position rather than from the position you occupied before. Your position has changed. I need to speak to that position change directly because it is the most important thing in this reading. You are not the same person they hurt. Whatever happened, whatever the specific shape of what was done and how it landed and what it cost you in the immediate aftermath, you have not remained static. The version of you that existed in that moment, the one who was hurt and who felt the hurt fully and who had to navigate whatever came after, has continued moving, has continued becoming, has done things in the time since that the person who was hurt did not yet know how to do. You healed, not in the neat, linear Instagram version of healing where everything resolves cleanly and you emerge without scar tissue. In the real version, where the healing is incomplete in some places and overshoots in others, and produces a person who is simultaneously more careful in some ways and more expansive in others, who knows things they did not know before because they learned them through something genuinely difficult. That person, the one you have become, is not someone who is going to engage with a chase the way the person who was hurt would have engaged with it. Not because you are playing games or managing your responses strategically, because your actual center of gravity has shifted. You are less interested in being chased than you once were. Not because you no longer want connection, because what you want from connection has become clearer and more specific and is no longer satisfied by the mere experience of being pursued. What you want is what the chase is supposed to be in service of. The actual, genuine, fully present, properly honoring version of the thing, not the pursuit itself. And that clarity, that specific earned quality of knowing what you actually want rather than what the emotional charge of being wanted feels like, is what they are going to run into when they reach that clarity, that specific earned quality of knowing what you actually want rather than what the emotional charge of being wanted feels like, is what they are going to run into when they reach. I want to describe what that running into feels like from their side, because I think it matters for how you understand what the chase is actually about for them. They are not running toward a version of you they are certain they can recover. They are running towards something they only understand they have lost now that it is fully out of reach. And there is a specific quality of pursuing something that has moved beyond you that is different from pursuing something you feel confident of recovering. It is humbler. It asks rather than assumes. It approaches rather than reaches. It has the specific posture of someone who understands they are not entitled to what they are seeking and who is making themselves available to whatever is offered rather than expecting the specific thing they want. That posture, when it arrives in the form of someone who once handled you without sufficient care, has a particular quality of recognition for the person being pursued. You will feel the difference between this and the version of how they approached you before. Before they assumed availability, now they are hoping for it. That shift is significant and it is real. And it tells you something about what the intervening time has actually done to their understanding of what you are worth and what your presence in someone's life actually costs when it is gone. Tell me in the comments if this resonates. If there is someone in your past whose behavior, examined now with the clarity of some distance, has a different quality than it had when you were inside it. Tell me if you feel the shift I am describing in yourself, the one where you are less organized around this person than you once were without having actively decided to be less organized around them. It simply happened. That is how real shifts move. I want to speak to what you do when the chase arrives, not a strategy, a way of being. Stay in your life. That is the complete instruction. Everything else is elaboration. When the reaches begin, when the tentative contacts and the subtle presences and eventually the more direct attempts arrive, they will invite a particular response from you. The response of someone who has been waiting for exactly this, who has been monitoring for exactly this kind of movement, and who is now calibrated to receive it in the specific way that maximizes whatever outcome seems most desirable. That response is not available to you anymore. Not because you are suppressing it, because it is genuinely no longer your default. The version of you that was organized around this person's attention, that calibrated its responses to the rhythm of this person's engagement, that existed in a kind of energetic suspension, waiting for this person to show up in a particular way, that version has been replaced by someone with places to be, actual places, actual things, actual people and projects and experiences that are competing for your attention from the inside rather than from the outside, that are not more important than this person, but that are genuinely interesting, that produce their own returns rather than requiring you to sustain them through the kind of one-directional investment that was happening before. Stay in that life when the chase arrives, not as a performance, not to create the impression of someone who has moved on in order to produce a specific effect in the person chasing, because that is genuinely where you are now. The impression is real. The moving on is real. And the person reaching for you is going to feel the difference between trying to recover someone who is performing indifference and trying to recover someone who is genuinely occupied. One of those is a game. The other is your life. I want to say something directly about the regret this person carries and what you owe it. Nothing. You do not owe their regret comfort. You do not owe it forgiveness on a timeline that serves their need to feel relieved of what they are carrying. You do not owe it the specific, generous response of someone who immediately converts someone else's awareness of their own mistake into permission for those mistakes to not have mattered. They mattered. And the regret existing does not automatically create an obligation on your part to resolve it. What you might choose to do with it, what relationship you might choose to have with this person on the other side of whatever the chase produces, is entirely yours to determine on your own timeline, from your own position, in whatever form actually serves your well-being rather than the form that most quickly relieves their discomfort. Your comfort comes first now, not from cruelty, from the specific earned clarity of someone who has spent enough time managing their own comfort around someone else's convenience and has concluded that the arrangement was not equitable. It was not equitable. And equity is what you are oriented toward now. As we close, I want to give you the full image of where this is heading. A chase that finds someone genuinely elsewhere. Not elsewhere in a way that says, I have decided not to be found. Elsewhere in a way that says, I am occupied with my own becoming and my own building and my own life, which is, it turns out, actually quite full when I give it the attention it deserves. And from that full, occupied, genuinely elsewhere position, a choice. Not made in the heat of being wanted, not made from the old hunger for this particular person's specific attention, made clearly from the settled position of someone who knows what they want, who knows what they have been through, who knows what they will and will not accept in exchange for their presence in someone's life. That choice, whatever it is, will be the right one, because it will be made by the version of you that exists now, not the version that was hurt, the version that survived it. And the version that survived it, Virgo, is formidable. The chase is going to discover that